Does anybody else remember a 2005 animated movie called Valiant? I wouldn't be shocked if you said no. This movie never really comes up in conversation, and honestly, if this wasn't the second movie I ever saw in theaters, I probably would have never heard about it either. I just rewatched this movie for the first time since I saw it in theaters 19 years later, and let me just say, I have some thoughts. Now, I will say, with how long it's been since I've seen this movie, how much life I've lived since then, I really didn't remember anything about it. I just remember two parts. This.
Well, at least have some breakfast before you go. Oh, Mum! Mum!
And this. And the reason that these two scenes stuck with me after all these years is probably because young me thought that was the most disgusting thing I had ever seen in my life. And now that I have gone back and rewatched this movie after all these years, there are some other scenes that kind of stuck out as ones that I might have halfway remembered. I kind of remember bits and pieces here and there, but not an actual full scene. But regardless of how much the movie I actually remember or don't remember, this movie definitely has a strong nostalgia factor for me, just because I didn't go to the theater a lot as a kid. I probably saw maybe half a dozen movies before I was, 14, 15 in the movie theater. And so each one of them kind of stick out to me, even if I don't remember plot, don't remember characters. I can think about the names of those movies and just have fond memories, even if I don't necessarily know what those memories are. Having seen this movie again, there definitely are parts of it that have more meaning to me now than they did when I was a kid. For example, when I was a kid, I didn't know actors, I didn't know celebrities, so now going through the cast list and seeing all these recognizable names, it has a different meaning for me now. And this movie does have some great actors and actresses in it. The two lead characters being played by Ewan McGregor and Ricky Gervais, who are big names. When I was watching this movie, I thought immediately that Valiant sounded like Ewan McGregor, but it took me 15 minutes into the movie to be absolutely sure. And that's just because Ewan McGregor sounds different when he does voiceover work. He sounds different as Rodney Copperbottom, he sounds different as Valiant than he does as, say, Obi-Wan Kenobi. But as far as Ricky Gervais is concerned, as soon as I heard Bugsy speak, I knew who he was. I always find it fun to go back and look at the cast list after I watch anything, just to see what different actors have been in other than what I just watched, or to see if there's someone who I didn't recognize that I know from something else. But even with these older animated movies, I find it even more fun, because you kind of forget sometimes that these A-list celebrities were in these forgotten projects. It's kind of how I felt when I saw Hugh Jackman was the voice of, I forget the character's name, he's the lead rat in Flushed Away. On the topic of Ewan McGregor, as someone who's a huge Star Wars fan and has been for most of my life, I think it's kind of funny that the first two movies I ever saw in theaters were both not Star Wars, but were also the same year as Revenge of the Sith, and they were both Ewan McGregor movies, Robots and Valiant. Now, as far as the actual movie goes, upon rewatch, I thought there were some parts in this movie that were really funny. And there was one joke in particular that I thought was actually funny, this one.
You don't eat your prisoners of war, do you?
Eat you. I'm a vegetarian.
And yet you wear a leather cape.
And then there were parts that made me laugh, and I thought to myself, wow, I must just be 5 years old still. Like this.
Fly, English pigeons, fly!
Oh dear. Sorry, love.
Oh, dirty bird.
And it's really a shame that this movie is all but forgotten, because it could be a goldmine of memes if anyone wanted to sift through it and find them. When I was going through and recording clips to use in this video, I was recording more clips because I wanted to make a meme out of it than I wanted to actually put in this video. But I think I'm just gonna throw them all in here just for the sake of it.
Gents, hello. Hello.
No! There's been a terrible mistake!
Trust me, this is all gonna work out brilliantly.
Wait! No, come on!
Now, all jokes aside, I'm not gonna look at this movie under a microscope and criticize it. It is what it is. It's an older movie, it's for kids, you can't judge it too harshly for its flaws. But what I will say is this, the animation does look dated. I know 2005 was a while ago, but even amongst the films of the time, Robots came out that same year, before this movie, and Robot still looks really good animation-wise, and a lot of that just goes to budget. This movie just didn't have the budget to have animation that was gonna hold up in the long run. But even still, I've seen worse animation, especially when you consider that this movie came out almost 2 decades ago. My only real big criticism of this movie is something that couldn't even really have been changed by the director or anything like that. It's just that this movie doesn't have a very long runtime. And that's not to say that a good movie needs a long runtime. It's just that this movie's an hour and 15 minutes, I believe, with the credits. And I believe the credits were like 4 minutes or so. But because of the short runtime, we're kind of missing story points. And when I say story points, I'm not talking about the big plot points of the movie. Those are all set. The thing that we're missing is kind of getting from point A to point B. There's just something in between the big plot points that isn't there because time-wise they couldn't put it there. For example, you've got Valiant in this movie, our lead character, who is a new recruit for the Royal Carrier Pigeon Service during World War II. And he forms this relationship with the nurse dove that's assigned to his unit. And we kind of see bits and pieces of their, relationship grow a little bit, little interactions. But if you add up all the screen time that these two characters share before they decide that they want to be together when he gets back from the mission, there's only like 30 seconds between the two of them. And I think we could have added another, 1-2 short scenes. The scenes that they do share are only like 15 seconds max each, some of them less than that. So we could have just threw in another 1 or 2 of those just to build that relationship more. And I know it doesn't really matter to kids because this is a kids movie and they're just there for a good time, but I'm not a kid. But if you want to just take that for what it is, fine, feel free to, because after all, that's the side plot. The main plot is different. But here is something that affects the main plot that I wish we would have got another scene or 2 of. In the movie, we have the character of Bugsy, who's just out for himself, and in his own words, kind of gets shanghaied into the army. And at one point in the movie, he's trying to leave, and Valiant sees him, and they have a discussion. And honestly, it's probably my favorite interaction in this movie that isn't a funny one. But we've got this interaction.
Oh, whoa. Hold on. Sorry, have I missed something? Did we start this? No. Did we make those? Or those? I've seen them full, mate, and it's not a pretty sight. The truth is, I'm scared. All right? Don't tell them that, because I'll deny it.
Well, I'm scared too.
Well, then come with me, yeah? Trafalgar Square would be ours. Come on.
But we didn't make Trafalgar Square either. And where do we go when they start dropping bombs there? No, I'm staying. I'm doing my bit.
And then there's really nothing after that. He leaves after the conversation, and then there's nothing in between. And then he comes back in this next scene.
Oi! Oh, hey, Bugsy! You can't go without me. I couldn't let you get all the glory.
And it kind of just feels like we put character development in there that just wasn't actually put in there. I wish we would have got one scene of him getting back to his home and realizing he was lonely, or just a scene about him thinking about what Valiant said or something, because it kind of just feels like we go from one end of the spectrum to the other just for nothing. And again, I want to emphasize that this is not a criticism of the writing. This is not a criticism of the direction. This is just, we didn't have enough screen time to be able to put those scenes in to fill that gap more. And that's kind of unfortunate. All in all, I really did enjoy revisiting this movie after all these years. It's one that I just went back to because of nostalgia. Even though I didn't really remember the movie, I remembered liking it when I watched it as a kid, but I was pleasantly surprised upon this rewatch. I really do think it's a shame that this movie is completely forgotten at this point. I've never heard anyone else mention this movie. Not a stranger, not a friend, not a family member, not the people that I went to the theater as a kid to see it with. But I would definitely recommend this movie to anyone in the age range that this came out for, or even anyone older than that who just wants to make memes with this movie. It's a great one for that.
Strike me down if I tell a lie.
Oh, look at them. That was lucky. Prayers were answered. That's never worked before, but...
If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for sticking around for my thoughts on Valiant. I appreciate everyone who listened. If you want to help me out, then a like, comment, or subscribing to the channel would really help. I know this was kind of a random video. It's not really what I normally would make a review on, but I'm trying to branch out. I want to do different things. I don't want it to just be, you know, Star Wars, Marvel, DC. I want to be able to do all types of things, whatever I want to do. But until next time, bye.
I don't know, but I can tell you this.